Today we're talking about 7 more of the most fun commanders in the format and their decks.
I'm Mia, and I like playing against really weird decks.
I'm BZ. I like playing against really bad decks, and we're the Nitpicking Nerds, sponsored by Card Kingdom. If you never want to build a bad deck again, I would say peruse Card Kingdom. They've got all the selection you need. Buy the stuff, get free shipping if your order's got $50 or more, and you're on your way to making good decks.
They have so many cards on there. They have all the foils and all the cool treatments. Go check them out. Tell them we sent you. It really helps us, and you can get a really good deal. We're also sponsored by Dragon Shield, best sleeves in the multiverse.
Good sleeves.
If you want to use the code
Nerds.
at checkout, you can save 5% of your real money tax dollars on your entire order. That is sleeves, that is binders, that is deck boxes, which we like to use when we go to conventions.
Absolutely. And Moxfield's going to be around later. When? You can try to guess, but you're going to be wrong. And we also have a unique sponsor today, Playgroup.gg. This is a life tracker app, but it literally tracks everything. And if you're someone like me who enjoys spreadsheets and keeping tabs on things, I think I'm actually just going to get this.
This is super cool. You can make a group with your friends and you track wins and losses, your turn duration, how much damage was dealt, mulligans, win cons, and if you want to see stats against each other, you can see how your decks rate against everyone else's and like their leaderboard.
Yeah, there's a leaderboard in this thing. So go sign up in the description because I'm already signed up at this point. By the time you're watching this, I've already used this app once.
I'm so excited.
It's amazing. So we're going over the most fun commanders in the format, and I think 7 commanders, it's not enough to talk about all of the fun options that we have. So we're going to go over the next 7 in the fun order. And the first one we got here, it's Brutaclad, Telcor Engineer, 4 blue-red for a 4/4. Creature tokens you control have haste. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you get a 2/1 blue Phyrexian Mirror. Then you may choose a token you control. If you do, each other token you control becomes a copy of that token. This card is wild. It is so weird, and it's so unique, and it just lends to so many different fun, amusing things you can do.
I think there are so many ways to just make tokens, especially in Izzet, whether that's your artifact tokens or your creature tokens, that you just in one fell swoop, you can just turn them into like very powerful tokens. I know one time, did you do like Portal to Phyrexia tokens or
yeah,
something?
I made a bunch of Portal to Phyrexia tokens. The sky is the limit with Brutaclad, and he actually pays you off. I just think this is an extremely unique design. We don't really have anything like this that turns tokens into other tokens, and I think there's also just tons of ways to build it. It's like this perfect little confluence of things because it's so like unique, and you don't see this text anywhere else. But you also can do Spellslinger. You can play all the Young Pyromancer effects that make tokens whenever you cast instant sorceries. You could play artifacts. You could play like the Mirrodin Besiege type effects. You could play clones. You could just say, I have a bunch of clones that make tokens of copies, and I'm going to copy all your stuff. Like, there's so many ways to go with this, which just makes it so much fun.
You could build this very sweaty or very janky, 1,000 Staff of Nins, perhaps.
That's my plan. I mean, I have a Brutaclad deck. I've had it for years. It's one of my oldest decks, and I'm never going to take it apart. So some of the cards you might see in a Brutaclad deck, I'm thinking Third Path Iconoclast. Whether you're Spellslinger or artifacts or just casting instant sorceries like to make tokens, this still makes tokens. No matter what you're doing, non-creature spells gives you stuff.
Ethereal Investigator is also a new one, an amazing one, because this comes down and you're going to make a clue token for each of your opponents, and already that's so much value because when Brutaclad's out, you can just copy all those into your best token.
Yeah, it just makes like 3 stupid, useless tokens, and even as you sacrifice those clues, drawing your second card makes the same, like another useless token. So you stay even on useless tokens, which is 3, but you can spin them around and move them around and make new resources and find better cards. I think cards like this that just kind of poop stuff into play, Brutaclad loves it.
It's so easy to just poop stuff into play, especially with the sets that they're coming out lately. Elminster's Simulacrum is also amazing in this deck because if you don't have the best board, why not just take your opponent's best stuff instead?
This is like, to me, it's like the opposite of Cyclonic Rift, where it's like, I'm holding it up, I'm going to play it no matter what, but I'm going to take your best thing and just get them on my side. You still have them, but I'm going to make really cool copies. And with Brutaclad, I only need one banger to say, oh, okay, my entire board is about to become this thing.
I feel like, I never want to pay the giant mana for like Blightsteel Colossus, but if you have one, I'm happy to copy it.
If you went through the trouble, who am I to say no? Who am I to deny myself that experience? There's also Replication Technique. I call this Blue Skyshroud Claim because I like to be goofy and clickbaity for no reason. But really what it does is, in the early game, you can just copy 2 of your lands, ramp a little bit, and then in the late game, those lands turn into your best thing. And the thing I like about copying lands is they are no more vulnerable than a regular land. What does a token land die to that a land doesn't die to?
That is true. It's not like destroy all tokens, in parentheses, lands included, you know? It's usually creature tokens. So they're not as like vulnerable than other things, like if you're copying someone's mana rock. There's also Karn, because you can actually get a little bit of card advantage because you're selecting things here and there and making constructs that are very beefy if you want to keep them as constructs or turn them into something even better later.
Yeah, constructs are one of the best tokens to make if you're trying to win the game with Brutaclad, and it's not necessarily just constructs, but it's tokens that are like stars that are equal to the number of whatevers you control, and they are a whatever. So this is an artifact, and it cares about the number of artifacts. So if you get 16 constructs, and even if those are your only artifacts, there's 16 16s. I think that's geometric scaling, right?
Yeah, I think that just because of constructs in general, I've just gotten run over with, like, you know, the Urza decks, the Esper Urza decks that just make constructs every single turn that you have. And so just being able to do that very frequently while also getting card advantages is so powerful.
Yeah, it really is. It makes it so that once you know the Brutaclad deck, anything that makes a construct is actually game over for you if you can't answer a Brutaclad or the construct before Brutaclad comes down.
Yeah. Molten Duplication is also great because you want to get that token chain started. And this is a really cheap way to pick something that you have. Say, okay, make a token, and it doesn't matter if it goes away because I'm going to turn something else into it. And even if that fizzles, I'll still have that token copy to make chains of for later.
Yeah, I like this card. It's even another way to go. I don't go this way with my deck, but it's definitely a respectable way where you have a bunch of these cheap, like Twin Flame, Molten Duplication. They just are one time, make a token, it'll die later. But if you make a token and then replicate that a million times, who cares that I lose one of them? Because I get to keep the rest of them. And that's definitely a way to go. It's pretty easy to play Brutaclad and this in one turn. And then all of your intentions have been shrouded until the last minute. And now it's like, surprise, here's 50 Inferno Titans.
I feel like this would be a little bit of like a faster way to go. Your deck is a little bit more mid-rangey and like
janky, yeah.
Yeah, so
it's still pretty janky. I don't know. I feel like all Brutaclad decks are like equal parts jank and awesome, and they still end up being powerful.
I feel like this one would go a little bit faster though. And Wormcoil Engine, I mean, that's just a throwback card, right?
Classic.
I feel like this is one of the best places that's actually playable in Commander, because Wormcoil Engine is one of those cards where I feel like when you start playing it, you're like, I wish I could put this in every deck because it's colorless and it can go in every deck. And you're like, well, actually, there are better things to do with 6 mana in Commander. But now there isn't.
I like it because when you start making tokens of the Wormcoil Engine itself, they die into other tokens. So even if you get board wiped, you now end up with twice as many worms that are half the size. And if you just play Brutaclad, you can make all of your other dinky clues and stuff into lifelink worms and just create a huge life swing. I doubt you want to do Death Touch, but lifelink is still pretty sweet. And obviously you got to go for the flex of not making Wormcoil worms with Brutaclad, making Wormcoil engines with Brutaclad.
That's good. This is a powerful card. If you can get so many of them on the field, it's just kind of game over for your opponents.
Yeah, once you get like 3, you feel like you're pretty good. You feel like you're pretty far ahead.
I mean, your life total's way farther ahead.
I just love Brutaclad. It's so much fun.
Another really fun commander, if you like to spin the wheel a little, is Atlapalani Nest Tender. 1 red, white, green for a 2/3, and if you pay 2 and tap it, you create an egg with Defender. But whenever an egg you control dies, you reveal cards from the top till you get a creature card, and you put it on the battlefield. So you're going to spin the wheel and make a bunch of little eggs, and then when they die, you're just going to get big monsters off the top.
Yeah, there's going to be a huge theme going forward with like introducing variance into the game and adding fun to it. I think introducing variance is great, but there's kind of has to be a purpose to it. This gives you an actual payoff. It's like, well, you're going to get something random and you don't exactly know what it is, but it's going to be a creature, and you can build your deck so that on average you get very good creatures off it.
We have a friend who actually has like a creature suite and just picks a few random ones to go in every single time, so it's random even for him. I think that's a really fun way to play this.
Yeah, he like has like 40 creatures outside his deck and then puts like 10 of them into the deck or whatever it is. It's pretty sweet. I like that Atlapalani doesn't do everything for you. Some of these commanders that come out, they give you everything. They give you the payoff and the enabler and something. But for this, you still need to figure out how to want to hatch those eggs. And so it's like, to me, you can't really read this card without going, oh, well, how do I get eggs to die? And then that to me just starts a chain, and it's really cool.
One of the best ways to get eggs to die, though, is Goblin Bombardment. You could deal a little bit of damage, you sacrifice the eggs immediately at instant speed, and then just get something off the top. I think that's like a really good way to go, especially in response to someone removing Atla Palani.
Yeah, I feel like it's not necessarily a flavor win, because, it's like, oh, she's nurturing all these eggs.
We're sacking them.
She's gonna coax these dinosaurs out of their little, and she's like, go, and she's like throwing them at people, and that is pretty funny. Atla Palani, the worst nest tender ever, but Goblin Bombardment is super sweet. It gives you that sack outlet to interact a little bit, take out utility creatures, and hatch all the eggs you need at instant speed.
There's also Palani's Hatcher, which actually just makes eggs.
And then hatches them.
Yeah, so it really just is all in one, and then you just get the payoff with Atla Palani. I think there's actually like a few pretty playable eggs in Magic just for this deck. Just LCI came out with a couple.
There was Dinosaur Egg. I think it's just called Dinosaur Egg.
Yeah, the Discover one. And then there's also the one that flips, I think, into an egg. There's like a saga, right?
I believe it. Yeah, there's like a dragon saga.
Yeah, that sounds right. It's from like Neon Dynasty or something.
Yeah. So there's tons of ways to like make eggs, but we want big boys. We got to flip into something. And I think I have not seen an Atla Palani deck that does not have Avacyn Angel of Hope in it, because this is just the embodiment of the Timmy players who want a little bit of variance. They want to be surprised by what they're ramping into. They want to be surprised by what they flip off the top. And Avacyn's always in here because it's a huge effect. It's fun. It's splashy.
I mean, Avacyn is one of those things where it's not easily castable, so you have to play it in decks where you can cheat it out and just completely negate that mana cost, right? Like 8 mana is a big investment, and it's not keeping up with rate for the rest of the things in Commander. So if you could cheat it out, it's great, but if you have to pay 8, ooh, that's rough.
Look, when you say cheat out, some people at home are already thinking, can I put Blightsteel Colossus into play? You can put Blightsteel Colossus into play. This is probably one of the environments where I think Blightsteel Colossus is not too shabby, because most of the time your eggs die at instant speed. So you go like end step, crack the egg, surprise, it's a Phyrexian monster. I guess that was in the egg, and then you bash somebody and take them out.
If you want to crack more eggs, though, how about Mirror Entity? You pay nothing into it, and they make it 0/0 eggs, and then they all crack and die, and then you just get a bunch of stuff off the top.
Yeah, your entire team. You kill every creature you control. It's like a mass one-time sack outlet. I think it's pretty sweet. But the other thing you can do, too, is you could just pay 1 mana, make all your creatures 1/1 eggs, 1/1 every types, and then sack them as you please and keep Atla alive.
I guess, but it's really fun to just be like, I don't know. My board's not that good. How about I just get a new one? There's also Congregation at Dawn, because you're going to want to tutor stuff to the top anyways. Why not tutor your 3 best creatures and then crack a few eggs and then get them actually onto the battlefield?
Yeah, the eggs aren't truly random. They just say, flip cards until you find a creature. What if we could just choose what to put in these eggs? So it's like sack an egg, Congregation at Dawn. Oops, Avacyn, Blightsteel, and name a 3rd creature.
What?
Llanowar Elves, because you can't get lucky every time, and that's what makes this so much fun.
That is true. Unfortunately, that is the power of variance. There's also Anointed Procession. If you want extra eggs, and eggs are tough for you to make, why not make 2 of them with this?
Yeah, eggs are expensive nowadays. The cost of living is going up. You could just throw Anointed Procession in your deck for the low price of like $40, and now you have double the eggs.
But if you want a fun way to build decks, how about Moxfield.com, the best place online to build decks, and look at ours if you want.
Yeah, you can look at our decks online. You can see how many eggs we have. And actually, I like the feature that Moxfield has. Is instead of like having to go some other tab or, like do some calculus or pull up a different spreadsheet, you can just stay on Moxfield, hover down to where the creature symbol is, and it just tells you the types and number of every single creature in your deck. It's so convenient, and it lets you know, I have 6 eggs in my Atla Palani deck.
I love Moxfield because you can make lists on it that aren't just commander decks. We have the cube on there and just free-form lists and whatever you really want. You can put your collection on there. Moxfield, a great place to build decks online.
Is that their slogan?
Sure.
Sure. We don't actually know their slogan. We have a next commander, though, and it's Lonus Cryptozoologist. Blue-green for a 1/2. Whenever another non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, you get a clue. Tap, sacrifice X clues, target opponent flips top X cards, and you can put a non-land permanent that costs X or less from among them onto the battlefield. So if I sack 6 clues, you flip 6 cards, and I can get a 6-drop or less to put into play as long as it's permanent. Lonus is very, very fun. Lonus is like the opposite of Atla Palani. It's for the Johnny players out there. It assembles a lot of little tiny resources and then pays them off in, I think, a really cool way. Because I think if Lonus did your deck, the fun factor would be a little bit lower. Because now we're approaching like somewhat boring, repetitive Simic value, but because it's their stuff, it really introduces this randomness element, and you kind of can't plan it. You're like, well, who do I think has the best deck? I guess I'll take something from you. You can absolutely whiff, even on 6. It's a very fun minigame.
I think this is pretty versatile when you play it at a table because it scales to the decks of the rest of the table too. So I feel like as long as you don't have too much like fast mana or free interaction or whatever, you can put this down and be like, all right, this deck is whatever you guys throw at me.
Yeah, and it's cheap and recastable. Lonis is only 2 mana, and it's pretty easy to get going. So you can like do the thing. It's not going to be one of those commanders that like has to die, or when they kill it, you don't get to play the game. This is like, I'll play Lonis, 2 creatures, get 2 clues, do the thing a little bit. Oh, you killed it? Okay, I'll recast it into 2 turns. It'd be fine.
If we want to go really fast with clues, how about Tireless Tracker? This is one of BZ's favorites.
All-timer.
And you're going to get payoffs from just playing lands. That's just you playing the game, especially in Simic.
Yeah, it's a nice way to boost your clue count without just playing more creatures. Like, I can now play creatures and play lands, and no matter what I do, I'm going to be getting clues for Lonis. And also, Senator Peacock's kind of funny because you could go, like, a lot of factors of these fun commanders, you can build them in different ways. This now says all of your artifacts are clues. So now, whenever any artifacts are in play, they can be sacrificed to Lonis to get a huge count off the ability.
Shrieking Drake is another awesome one in here because you're going to play it, you're going to bounce something back to your hand, it's probably going to make clues, and you're going to play it again and make more.
You can just bounce Shrieking Drake every time, and this is not a card I would urge you to go infinite with, but I think if you just have an emblem that says blue, investigate, that's hilarious. How is that not exactly what Commander was designed to be for?
Tingletrove Kelp is kind of like a Cyber Drive Awakener, you know, but just for your clues, but it makes them 6/6, so you can swing in with your clues even if you can't just sack them with Lonis because you can't stick on the battlefield or something.
I gotta say, seeing cards like Tingletrove Kelp, I remember it came out in Murders for the precons, but I'm just thinking, I think I might want to build a Lonis deck. It just looks so goofy. I get to play a lot of my favorite cards, and now there's like actual win conditions, so you can turn your clues into beaters, and Tingletrove Kelp, it's just hilarious. I'm falling in love with the clue deck all over again.
MKM had so much clue support. I think that you could definitely do it, and it can actually have legs, and it's not just, okay, clue, artifact, and it really does fall into your theme of making non-treasure, non-food
artifact tokens. Yeah, that's kind of my thing in Commander. And like you said, you could actually just also include Cyber Drive Awakener.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, basically.
Makes it easy. Junk Winder, because this has affinity for tokens, and when tokens come in, you're going to tap stuff of your opponents, and it doesn't untap. That is actually... It just ices down the board. I have it in my Alayla deck, and it's really just kind of oppressive.
Kind of makes attacking and blocking impossible for your opponents, and you just go, now I can only focus on offense, because whenever I advance my own board, I'm de-advancing, whatever the opposite of advance is. I'm messing up your board, so now you're not going to be able to crack back at me or anything, and now you can just go, do Shrieking Drake, cast it over and over, make like 5 clues.
Jaheira, Friend of the Forest, because if you need more mana, why not just play this and have your clues tap for mana instead without sacking them and stuff?
Yeah, shout-outs to editor Chris, who loves Jaheira. Making the clues into mana rocks kind of makes them silly, because now they're like treasures that don't sacrifice plus still clues. You could tap the clues to still sack those same clues. It gets a little wonky, but I like that sort of like combo-esque where like I'm not literally going infinite, but I'm doing so many cool things and I'm just spinning my wheels that you know I like to spin my wheels by now.
Jaheira is Chris's Carador, basically, and I've seen so many awesome variants of it. It's just a very versatile card. And how can we have a token-making deck without Academy Manufactor? I mean, if you're going to make clues anyways, why not make foods and treasures with it?
Look, I will say, probably don't include Shrieking Drake and Academy Manufactor, because that goes infinite, and Glotus won't be on here if you're just going infinite. We're talking about the at its core, Johnny player messing around Lonis deck.
A commander that came out in LCI and we actually played a really fun game against is Pantlaza, Sun Favored. Alias V played this with us when in their Alias V played this against us, and it was a super cool commander. 2 red, white, green for a 4/4. When it or another dinosaur ETBs under your control, you discover X, where X is that creature's toughness, only once each turn, though. So you can get a lot of dinosaurs over the course of a little while, and it goes big.
Yeah, the thing I like about this deck is it absolutely goes big. Everybody needs one deck that just assembles this board state that's just like 30 power. Pantlaza definitely helps with that. And I like that it's open-ended because, it's like when it ETBs and you might think that you're, pigeonholed into this dinosaur thing, but I don't think so, because how do you want to take advantage of Pantlaza's effect? It only triggers once each turn. So do you want to like be casting spells from exile and put more Discover and Cascade in your deck? Or do you want to flicker Pantlaza over and over because then it will reset the Discover? Or do you want to build creatures that are just like humongous toughness, like a Zatalpa or something, to where now you discover so much you're going to cast something amazing?
I think dinosaurs didn't need this, but it is a fun way to take them. Hunting Velociraptors, another new addition, because it gives all of your dinosaurs Prowl and like 3 mana. So you can just swing in with something that's kind of, cheap, dinky, and blockable, and then just spit out a bunch of dinosaurs because you're in Naya. You're going to be ramping anyways.
Yeah, and then when you ramp out, like an 8-drop for 3 mana, now you're going to get that Discover value off of Pantlaza, and it's just going to be huge value. I think also the fact that Pantlaza does Discover right away is pretty relevant for you being able to play the game and keep things in play, because Pantlaza is one of those commanders that can die, but does give you immediate value. But I also think it doesn't do so much where it's miserable to play against. It's like once per turn, and you got to build around it, and if they can get around that, you're going to be in trouble, but that's fine with me.
Yeah, I think it's pretty interesting that it doesn't trigger off like Roaming Throne and stuff, so it's not as miserable per se because you can't spit out a ton. There's also Gishath Sun's Avatar. I mean, I feel like this was one of the go-to dinosaur commanders that kind of got swept away once Pantlaza came out, in the wave of popularity.
Yeah, Gishath's really cool. It's fun to hit them and then, spin for free, get something, and then if that's the first dinosaur, now you're discovering again. I like it. I think also Wayward Swordtooth is a really cool one because it's like a high power toughness, low mana value. So for only 3 mana, you get this. You can have the effect of playing additional lands, which is always nice for green decks, but you're going to discover 5, which is a solid chunk.
Another round. This card feels like it was made for this deck because you're going to blink things multiple times. So you can just keep blinking Pantlaza and just getting more stuff off the top.
Yeah, this is really weird, and it just so happens to work perfectly because Pantlaza only triggers once per turn. But if let's say you have Pantlaza and like a 7/7, you flicker them both. X is 4, so they come back 4 times, and then Pantlaza will trigger her 1 Discover for 7, because that's your other guy, 4 times, and you just have the silliest board. I think that's a really cool combo. I hope to see it, although I'm pretty sure when I do see it, I'll be dead.
Yeah, I really want to see that in person. I think that's super cool. There's also Welcome to ... Jurassic Park, because there's a front and a back, because this is a flip saga. There's removal on the front, and if you can get all the way to the back, dinosaurs get Escape.
I think also just making mana for your dinosaurs is pretty cool. It creates a dinosaur that can trigger Pantlaza. This is a card that I feel like I'm going to forget about because it's like this really weird niche release. I think it's like $15 right now, and I just know that like I'm going to mention this in a video in 2027, and it'll be like $100.
I think so, too. I feel like a bunch of the Universes Beyond is going to be like that. No one's going to open too much of them. It's going to be limited, and then one card's going to spike in like Modern or something. It's going to be $1,000.
Yeah, exactly. So let's also think about what are some of the biggest dinosaurs we could possibly do? Well, pretty much any version of Galta, because I think all 3 of them are 12/12s. But I like Galta and Maverin because it makes additional dinosaurs. So even after you play it, get your Discover 12. If you somehow haven't won by then, you untap, you attack with a bunch of dudes, make another dinosaur, and discover even more.
I like the fact that it can also make life linkers too if you are a little bit low on life, because everyone does want to take out the big stompy player before they can actually assemble a board. So you can recover a little bit of life if you play Galta and Maverin.
Yeah, if you want to attack, it lets you put up blockers so that you can't die on the backswing. Or if you don't want to be really aggressive, it just gives you another attacker.
Waking Sun's Avatar, this is a one-side board wipe because all of your stuff's going to be dinosaurs and most of their stuff is not going to be.
Throw in an extra Discover 7. We got something cooking. We got a stew cooking. And if you want to see us cook more stews on our Patreon, that's a great way to support the channel. If you give us some money each month, you get to see exclusive content that we don't have on YouTube. We have a whole little world over there. So I would just encourage you to check it out. And we have to shout out our patrons because they make this all possible. But what is our next commander? Well, that's a great question that I have to answer because it's my turn to read it. It's Valky, God of Lies. He's 1 and a black for a 2/1. When he enters the battlefield, each opponent reveals their hand. For each opponent, you can choose a creature and exile it until he leaves the battlefield, and you can pay X to have him become a copy of a creature card exiled with him. But nobody really cares about that, because on the backside, he's Tybalt, Cosmic Imposter, which you can cast for 5 black-red, has 5 starting loyalty, and as Tybalt enters the battlefield, you get an emblem with, you may play cards exiled with Tybalt, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast those spells. That's just a little prerequisite so the rest of this card functions. +2, exile the top card of each player's library. -3, exile target artifact or creature. And -8, exile all graveyards, add red, red, red. So whatever Tybalt does, he is feeding his own ability. And it kind of, you can add draw a card whenever you exile a card. Because exile 3 means draw 3. You can now access them forever. And it actually also hits your deck, so it should be draw 4. And that's a pretty sweet feeling. This card guarantees that every game is different because you're casting spells from their decks. That's 3/4 of what this does.
I feel like this card usually gets the most like traction and views when it's like being cheated out in some sort of 60 card format. But since it can be played as commander, I've seen it both as commander and in the 99. It's been pretty powerful, but keeping him alive is the biggest deal because he is a planeswalker, so he can be removed a little bit easier.
Yeah, it's an interesting challenge because you've got this 7-mana thing and you really don't want to have to recast it, and they can just attack it. So a lot of the interesting deck building goes to like, all right, well, how can I keep Tybalt alive? How can I prevent damage or wipe the board in a way that keeps him around or something? So I think it's like a protect the queen. You want to just keep Tybalt alive, have him draw 4 cards every turn, and then cast your opponent's spells and win. And I think that's always fun. I think 2 cards that you're going to see in this deck a lot. One of them is Dark Ritual, because I think you just want to spew out cards, and this deck would happily discard all of its cards in hand to just get Tybalt out because he restocks you so quickly. And another card on that same line is Mana Geyser. It can ramp you into Tybalt earlier than expected, or once Tybalt is out, if you've got a lot of cards under him, you just make like 50 mana, and now you can cast all of them.
I feel like with Mana Geyser, you're always going to be getting so much mana. So in general, it's like, okay, I'll exile your big threat, and then I'll just spit it out on my side instead. Prosper Tomebound, also amazing because you're going to be making treasures and getting just value when you're playing stuff out of exile, which is all of the stuff from Tybalt.
Plus, he's a Death Touch 1/4 body, so he's kind of a protective like bodyguard for Tybalt a little bit. It's harder to attack into a 1/4 Death Touch. So like turn 4 Prosper, turn 6 Tybalt, that's a pretty good start already. I also like Heartless Conscription. It's a board wipe, but now all the cards just go into your pool of, I can cast these. I'm just going to cast these. Maybe when I fire off my Mana Geyser later, I'll just make 30 things and then cast all your stuff, and now you're going to lose to your own deck.
Keeper of Secrets, this is a Warhammer card. When you play stuff from exile, you're going to be dealing damage, and so you're going to be casting all of the stuff from exile anyways. This Passionate Archaeologist, a non-combat way to win.
Yeah, it's a nice little win condition for just doing what your deck wants to be doing anyway. It's a nice way to weaponize it so that you're not just spinning your wheels forever. Game's got to end at some point. And I also like Brainstealer Dragon for a similar reason. When you're going to put their things into play on your control, they're going to get damaged and lose life.
Yawgmoth is an all-star in most black decks, but especially here because you can proliferate the Tybalt side of this and actually just keep getting the exile graveyards, add mana, and if you can keep doing that, I think you're going to be in pretty good shape.
I mean, once you fire off, if the game's going along, if you have mill or they're fetching and, the game's happening, the cards are going to the graveyard, you wipe the board, play Yawgmoth, proliferate Tybalt, ultimate. That is so many cards. Now it doesn't even matter if Tybalt stays around or not because you have access to pretty much the entire game log of spells that have happened already. So you can go the proliferate route, you can go the protect the queen route, you can go the just, I'm here to +1, have fun, +2, have fun route. I think Tybalt is very, very interesting to play with and play against.
Moving on to the standout commanders of Group Hug, Kianos and Tiro of Miletus, also known as Gay King sometimes. Red, green, white, blue for a 2/8. That is a big butt. At the beginning of your end step, draw a card. Each player may put a land from their hand onto the battlefield, then each opponent who didn't draws a card. This is just the epitome of Group Hug, right? A little bit of value here, but you gotta win somehow.
Yeah, we tend to rag on Group Hug a little bit, and what I like about Kianos and Tiro that I think moves it closer to fun and less to, the game is about to be random chaos and you can't really predict what's going to happen, is that everybody gets a benefit, but my benefit is the best. As the Kianos and Tiro player, you are clearly advantaged in that, and so I like that it just at least pushes you in that direction of like, yeah, everybody can get stuff, but make sure you get the best stuff.
I feel like you have to play this a little bit carefully too, because it's like, oh no, don't attack me, I'm giving you stuff. It's like, but don't notice the fact that my stuff is better than yours.
Yeah, it's extremely open-ended. This commander really doesn't say anything at all on it, so it just says, hey, maybe you do more of what I'm doing, which is give everybody stuff and a little bit extra for me. I think it's generous, but with a purpose. And I think that really puts it over the edge. I've played against Kianos and Tiro, and I have enjoyed it more than playing against some, random... I enjoy it more than Feldergriff. Let's put it that way.
I feel like Feldergriff players, it's always just like kind of you're gonna combo or it's just going to be random. And I do like the fact that this does, in the end, get to, I feel like, a real win con that's not super sweaty, I guess, or just combo centric.
Yeah, part of that, give everybody something, but I get the best thing plan is Selvala Explorer Return. Everybody parlays, everybody gets a card, but you get mana and gain life. So it's like, oh, this is good for everybody. Maybe you want to keep it on the table. Maybe it stays on the table too long. And every time I activate it, I get the best advantage out of it.
Lorn of the Third Path is also like that. You and target opponent can draw a card if you activate it. That's only if you want. but you can also destroy an artifact or enchantment when she enters the battlefield.
Yeah, so you come down, you get immediate value, and then if it benefits you, I can then make a deal, make an alliance, help somebody find answers if we're digging for something, and it's pretty good. Edric, Spymaster of Trest, is similar. If you want to build Kineos and Tiro a little bit more combat focused, maybe you do some goading shenanigans. This, when opponents hit each other, they draw cards, which benefits you because you're not getting hit. And of course, you get all of that as well. So if you have evasive bodies, you have tokens, you're going to get a bunch of cards off of it.
Fairy Mastermind can be flashed in if your opponents can deal combat damage with Edric, for instance, and then you can be profiting off them drawing extra cards.
And if we take Fairy Mastermind and we combine it with our commander, Kineos and Tiro, and Selvala, we can go Fairy Mastermind, activate Selvala, everybody draws a card, and then go to the end step, and whoever takes a card now is going to trigger Fairy Mastermind. And you can also do those in reverse, which I think would be more sneaky, but you get what I'm saying.
Rocco's Street Chef is a card that I don't think gets enough love because you're going to be getting some stuff off the top, everyone is, and so it looks generous, but you're going to be getting counters and foods from people playing lands or spells from exile.
If Amber was a Magic card, she would definitely interact favorably with food tokens, so she'd be all over the Rocco Street Chef, and I think Rocco also falls into that. Everybody gets a thing, but I'm clearly benefited. It's making me look at this and go, what if I just put all cards like that in here? That could be interesting. You could also just go the route of, I'm giving you new resources, so let me play Council 4 to take advantage of it, so now whenever you use your new resources, I just get benefit from it, and then I can build up a board and maybe go wide with Edric or just play an overrun or something.
It's just value in general, and it also is a big blocker because I feel like it's like, oh, well, you're an easy target. Most group hug decks are usually pretty easy targets for combat-based damage and stuff. It's like, no, I'm not. Council 4 has a big butt, so does Gay Kings, and in general, you can't hit me to get that value. There's also Approach of the Second Sun, because every group hug deck needs a win con, and I do mean if you build a group hug deck, put a win con in, and any win con.
Chris, we're breaking out the Flex Seal meme again, because if you've ignored everything I've said before about having a game plan and trying to win the game, at least make sure Approach of the Second Sun is in your deck, and if you're just dirtling forever, you can actually shut the door on the game. Amber's a big fan of ending the game, because she wants to go eat food after. But we're going to move on to our next super fun commander, and that is Mr. House, President and CEO. Red, black, white for a 0/4. Whenever you roll a 4 or higher, you get a 3/3 robot, artifact creature token. If you rolled 6 or higher, you also get a treasure token. And you can pay 4 and tap and roll a 6-sided die, plus an additional 6-sided die for each mana spent from treasures to activate this ability. So if I spend 4 treasures and tap Mr. House, I roll 5 6-sided dice, and then if they come up 4 or higher or 6 or higher, I get the treasures and the robots back.
I really like this because it makes a bunch of cards that are not so good actually playable, because you can roll d20s and just get a 6 or higher. That's incredibly likely. So if you're playing stuff like Wand of Wonder, that's not usually a playable card, but you do get the dice roll trigger and you get extra stuff off it. Now it's a little bit better.
Yeah, dice rolling, a pretty underused mechanic, so it's fun when a card takes advantage of it in a nice way. It also just makes bad or terrible cards into awesome and playable cards. I can take any random throwaway common from Dungeons and Dragons set, put it in this deck, and now it's like, oh, well, when this thing attacks, I get a 3/3, and maybe I get a treasure also. Like that's pretty cool. That is a unique factor of a commander that can take garbage, turn it into super awesome deck, tie it all together, and make it fun to play with and against.
Plus, New Vegas was just the best Fallout, so it's good that we have a fun commander from it. Barbarian class, one of the best classes. We're going to be rolling so many dice to begin with. This is kind of like Krark's Thumb, but for dice rolling instead.
Yeah, it also is going to, like, when you level it up all the way, creatures you control having haste, that's pretty real, especially when you can activate Mr. House at instant speed. If he dies, you play him again, fire off those treasures, make a bunch of stuff, and that's actually like a pretty strong fighting force. Will's the same thing. He helps you re-roll dice, and these are going to be important for like a later nonsense combo in the deck, but I just think re-rolling and saying, oh, even if I'm rolling d6s now, I have a good chance to get robots is pretty powerful. You have Will's Reversal to just say that now my instants and sorceries even can roll dice, and so like if instead of playing Deflecting Swat or a Bolt Bend, I can play Will's Reversal and still get that interaction and still get the like eat my vegetables, but I'm still rolling dice too.
It's thematic. I really do like the fact, because every deck needs interaction. I feel like it's hard to put that in sometimes. Vexing Puzzle Box also really good, because this is your mana rock. This is your eat your vegetables. This helps you roll dice, d20s, and you can tutor an artifact if it has 100 or more, vexing puzzle box counters?
I think it's poop counters.
Yeah, poop counters on it. So you can go tutor an artifact if you have 100 or more on there.
Super funny to just have something that says tap, roll a die, add a mana, and now Mr. House is like, great, perfect, get in my deck. It's going to be one of the best cards in my deck. It's so hilarious. Another one that I will say Nitpicking Nerds called out when it was spoiled, but everybody slept on it. Now it's finally money. Clown Car. X mana to roll X dice. You always knew that was going to equate into something. And now Dr. House, MD, cares about the number of dice you roll still triggers that many treasures and robots.
Mirkwood Bats. This card is playable in, I'm not going to say every deck known to man, but I'd say a good portion of them, and it's especially good here. You're going to be making a lot of tokens like robots, treasures, and you're going to be sacking the treasures, and this is just going to deal damage. Every time I see Mirkwood Bats come down, it's scary.
Yeah, if you have Mr. House and you play Mirkwood Bats, you can play Clown Car X4, roll 4 dice, get 4 treasures and 4 robots. That's 8 life for each opponent. Sack the 4 treasures to activate Mr. House. They lose 4 more life. That's 12. Now you can get up to 4 more treasures, 5 more treasures from this, and they lose 10 more. And it's just like, you barely even did anything. You play Clown Car.
This is a common. It's super cheap. Can go in any deck. This is just a Mirkwood Bats ad.
Yeah, this is actually sponsor of the video, Mirkwood Bats. We got to put the paid promotion on YouTube now. We also have Manneting Hex, a card you probably forgot about. It deals damage to people when they cast non-creature spells, and then it attaches randomly to other opponents as a curse. It's just a way to have more dice be rolled.
Delina Wild Mage. I feel like this can combo if you get super
combo.
lucky, but don't expect to combo and get infinity with her. But she says you can make tokens of creatures that are attacking when you attack, and so if you roll a 15 or higher, though, you keep doing that process. Maybe you get really lucky and get like 20.
Well, the thing about this is, this is probably the least fun card in the deck, but it is the I win button. If you have cards that re-roll dice like Barbarian Class or Will, if you have those in play, Delina becomes like 75% chance to hit every time, and then it's like a non-deterministic but still basically infinite loop of I have 75 dice rolls on the stack, and if they all whiff, I don't keep going, but you're probably dead. And so Delina, it's a nice cherry on top to just this absolutely random deck, and Amber's got the heebie-jeebies just thinking about it.
Oh, Amber just exploded into hair. I'm sorry.
She really did. If you want to see Amber, here's a video that might have Amber in it, and she's laying down for more. Go check out more Amber.